Hi, everyone. We're going to give it a few minutes for folks to come in, and we will begin at 4:05. Okay, it is 4:05, so I think we can begin. To answer quickly a question that has already been put in the chat. Yes, this recording is going to be uploaded to our YouTube channel, and I believe sent around to everyone as well, as will the slides that we are presenting today. But first, welcome to Work-Based Learning for Students with Disabilities. We're going to be diving into a lot of information. But first, let's introduce ourselves. I'm Juliet Eisenstein. I'm the Assistant Director of the Post-Secondary Readiness Project at Advocates for Children. I'll pass it off to Alex to introduce himself.
Hi, everyone. I'm the Director of the Post-Secondary Readiness Project here at Advocates for Children, and super excited to be putting this on today. And last, but certainly not least.
Hi everyone, I'm Monia Islam. I use she, her pronouns. I am the Director of Work-Based Learning at Expanded Schools.
Great. So for a quick overview of what today is going to look like, we've just done introductions. We're going to briefly touch on what AFC does, what Expand Ed does, and then we're going to dive into the content. We're going to talk about work-based learning, or WBL, in school, so different program offerings that are within the DOE. We're then going to talk about programs that exist both in and outside of the DOE. And then we're going to talk about programs that are exclusively meant to serve students with disabilities. The programs before that can serve students with disabilities, but they're not created specifically for them, whereas this last category will be about programs specifically made for students with disabilities. Okay, so to start us off, what is AFC? We are an independent agency that protects the rights of all New York City students. We were founded in 1971 by several parents of students with disabilities, and our mission has expanded over the years to basically cover all realms of the K through 12 education system in the city, ranging from early childhood and charter schools to immigrant students, students in temporary housing, students in the criminal justice system, and older students, and particularly older students with disabilities who are navigating high school. And that's the team that Alex and I are joining you from here today. We also have a helpline that families, professionals, students can always access. And the number is on the slide, which will be shared afterwards. Pass it to Monia.
I'm Monia. I'm joining you from Expanded Schools. Expand Ed is a nonprofit intermediary that supports school and community partnerships through programming, research, and policy. So we want to start this webinar off with a framing and understanding of what is work-based learning. And we truly see work-based learning as a supportive and reflective process where young people are able to learn about themselves and their post-secondary pathways. Work-based learning allows young people to learn about work and careers through actual work experiences. And structured work-based learning experiences can really happen anywhere, whether it's in school or outside of school. And lastly, we want young people to participate in work-based learning because it allows young people to build a bridge between their interest and academic learning to their professional post-secondary lives. The first set of work-based learning programs that this presentation is going to focus on, it's going to be in-school programs. So now these programs are supported and led by New York City Public Schools. Some of them are going to be is going to be a part of New York City Public Schools. So you have to go to one of those schools to participate. And this also includes programs for other public school students who might be going to a charter or any kind of affiliate program of New York City Public Schools. So the first set of these programs begin with Pathways programs. Now these are programs that are multi-year. They don't kind of cap at one experience or 1 year. These are multi-year experiences. And some of these are new introductions brought by that Adams administration. So one of the oldest programs that exists in New York City and across New York State are career and technical education, or CTE programs. So CTE programs require young people to be enrolled in a school that has a CTE program. Outside of the city, there may be BOCES offices and other spaces where young people can participate in CTE, but here in the city, most folks participate in CTE through a school-based program. And CTE takes a student on a pathway across their 4 years of high school. So they take introductory courses where they learn about careers and foundational career literacy skills. They take a deep dive into one sector that's defined by CTE. They do a work-based learning experience that's about 54 hours as their capstone. And some CTE programs, depending on which one, may require young people to take an exit credentialing exam. And then students traditionally will graduate with a CTE pathway, which they can use either as a exam waiver, as like a +1 option, or as an endorsement on their graduation diploma. The latter two programs are new through the Adams administration. So there's FutureReadyNYC. Future Ready is almost like it's very similar to a CTE program, just a little less intense. It's a multi-year program where participating schools have built in a pathway, either one or two pathways either in business, education, healthcare, or technology. And students who are placed under Future Ready take a deep dive into these pathways through high school courses, college classes, through CUNY's College Now program, and work-based learning opportunities. And lastly, the other program, Career Readiness and Modern Youth Apprenticeship, students begin by taking foundational courses and then apply for an apprenticeship program. And starting their junior year of high school, students attend school 3 times per week, and then 2 times per week they report to their apprenticeship site. This program can continue until their sophomore year of high school. I do want to note, as we talk about Pathways program, these are for select schools. So as we go into our next slide, if you're thinking about, if you're a parent on this call or supporting a young person at the school, supporting a young person in school, we do ask that folks look at the My Schools directory. Juliet, would you mind taking us to the next slide? So if you look up in My Schools directory, you can actually filter for CTE, early college courses, Future Ready, and CRMYA, those 3 program models that we talked about. And you can learn about whether your child has this program at their school, or if they're applying to school and this is a program model that you're looking for, a multi-year program model, you can apply to those schools through there. So those are city large-scale initiatives. The next set of programs are really focused on school-based or school-created programs. So these we like to call school-based internship programs. This is when a school on their own is offering their in-house internship program, either through the school building it on their own or through partnership with a community-based organization. Now, some of these are highlighted on My Schools. Many of them are not. So we always ask that folks contact their schools to inquire about any kind of internship programs that they have. Some examples might be 11th grade internship programs that folks have. Some select students might get into certain programs through community-based organizations. So it's an entire house of them, and they all look very different because they're school created. Unlike, CTE is going to look very similar across multiple schools. This is going to look different for every school. I always want to note that not every school has an internship program. So you might be reaching out to your school and say, hey, do you have an internship program? And you might get a no. And that is a great place to advocate. Our next set of programs are around paid internships for specialized communities. So Learning to Work is a special program that are in young adult borough centers, or YABCs, and some transfer schools offer Learning to Work. Learning to Work can be either a one-time experience or a multi-year experience, depending on how long the student is with this center or with their transfer school. And it really allows young people to get work readiness skills. They get paid internships that allow them to work up to 10 hours per week during the school year. And LTW is normally managed by a community-based organization at a school. So schools and borough centers have community-based organizations assigned to them. Normally, if your child attends an LCW school, you can connect with the LCW coordinator, and they can connect you to these opportunities. I do see a question in the chat around who these opportunities are for. All of the opportunities that I've shared so far are for high school students. There may be some school-based internship programs that are built for middle schools, but that is very, very rare. So most of these are for high school students. And then the last of the wide-ranged school-based programs include vocational training centers, or more commonly known as co-ops. Co-ops exist in various different ways across the city. So we can see examples of it like half-day programs for students enrolled in certain New York City public schools, high schools, or pathways to graduation, P2G programs. Certain sites across New York will have them. There are night school programs for folks who are enrolled in night school to access vocational training. And this is predominantly for young people who are ages 17 plus and high school graduates up to the year of 21. You can call this number or look for co-op tech programs here to learn much more about co-op. It is like a variety of program offerings. So you really have to kind of do your research when it comes to co-op. And then for the last program, I'm going to turn it over to Juliet to tell us about what happens in District 75 schools.
Thanks, Monia. Yeah, so these are programs that have some similarities to the programs that Monia was already sharing, but are only for students who are recommended placement in District 75. So there are 4 different programs that I'm going to review. All of them take place while a student is enrolled in school still. So first, there's Project Search. This is for students in District 75 who have intellectual or developmental disabilities. It encompasses an internship that takes up the student's entire last year of high school. So instead of going to classes, they are full-time employed at an internship program. They have a few different partnerships that Project Search works with, depending on the borough that the school is located in, but oftentimes they are in the medical or administrative fields. The second, and I should say Project Search also, once a student is finishing up their last year of high school, works to help the student secure full-time employment either at the current internship host or at another program. The second is paraprofessional and teacher aid programs. These are 1 or 2 year training programs that students in District 75 can enroll in during their last 2 years of high school. So for students in District 75 who are alternately assessed or not working towards a high school diploma, they're working instead towards a credential, they can enroll in a program to become a teacher's aide within District 75. So helping a teacher in a classroom with assorted tasks. And if it's a student in District 75 who is standard assessed, so they are working towards a diploma, they can work towards becoming a paraprofessional in the classroom. So a one-to-one paraprofessional for a student who needs extra support. Next is the food internship program. This is for students in District 75 who are 18 years and older. It's an 11-week internship where a student will work in a cafeteria as a lunch helper. This can happen in the school that the student attends, but they could also go offsite to a different school to serve as a lunch helper. And then finally, there's the CBS internship program for students, again, who are 18 and older. where students get the opportunity to train for various positions at CVS. I should say too that like Monia said about the other programs before, these programs only exist in certain District 75 schools. They don't exist in all District 75 schools. So if you are interested in one of these programs, talk to the principal of your school, see where these programs are available. Particularly for programs like the paraprofessional program, you could potentially transfer to a school that does offer that program. So always important to ask and see where these programs can be accessed. And this leads well into our final slides in this section, which are our rights and advocacy tips in finding work-based learning programs. The first, as Monia covered, is looking at My School. So when you're applying to middle and high school, you can filter to see which schools have CTE programs, which schools offer Future Ready New York City, and which schools offer Career Ready Modern Youth Apprenticeship programs. So that can be a really helpful resource in seeing what programs your student should apply for that offer these work-based learning experiences. If you're already in high school and you're not sure what work-based learning your school offers, you can always talk to the principal, guidance counselor, another trusted teacher. Say, hey, I'm really interested in getting work experience. You know, what is available at school for me? And if your school doesn't offer any such programs, you can always consider a half-day program at Co-op Tech. They're very used to working with students who attend their homeschool for half day and then attend Co-op Tech for the second half of the day. Though, as mentioned, it is a hard program to get into, but it can be a really great resource for students looking to get a certification or other forms of vocational training. There are also other resources, which we will get into in the next section, called TCACs that can help. They stand for Transition and College Access Centers. These are DOE-run centers in each borough that can provide support, and I'll talk about them more in the next section. But I will say, unfortunately, most programs currently do require working papers to participate, though there are some programs that will offer a smaller stipend for paid programs so that those without working papers can also participate. And when I say most programs, I mean most programs that are paid internship experiences. If it's not a paid internship experience, it is generally more accessible. Okay, and then finally, some rights and advocacy tips for this section. For students with disabilities that are interested in these programs, some of them, like the District 75 programs I talked about, are meant for students with IEPs. But some of them, like Future Ready New York City and Career Ready Modern Youth Apprenticeship, in addition to other CTE programs, are not tailored to students with IEPs. That said, you have the right to your IEP accommodations while in those programs. So if you feel like either you want to enroll in one of those programs or you're in one and really struggling, reach out to your school, have your IEP there and point out what accommodations you need that you're not getting, or request more scaffolding or extra time to complete assignments so that you're getting the services that you're legally entitled to throughout the school day. Self-advocacy is really key in this. You have to let your school know when you need help and ask for the supports that they can provide. Of course, IEPs are legal documents, but it is always important to name when you need more support than you're getting so that the school knows that they need to do more to support you, and you can talk through what would make it a more beneficial experience. And if you need supports that aren't yet on your IEP, or you don't have an IEP but feel like you might need more support, you can always consider requesting a meeting to update your program, or requesting, for instance, a 504 plan to give you access to some accommodations. Okay, I'm going to pause here, and I see that there are a few questions that I will just briefly read. Okay, so I see one question about, is this information only for District 75 schools? No. There is one slide specifically focused on District 75 schools. The rest were focused on DOE programs, and in the next two sections, we'll be talking about programs both in and outside of school. So besides the District 75 school slide, all the other programs are available to all students, and in fact are also available to District 75. At least I know that there is one District 75 school that participates in Future Ready New York City, as well as one school in Career Ready Modern Youth Apprenticeship. So besides the slide that specifically focused on District 75, they are all available to all students. And we do not, unfortunately, have data on job numbers after high school. I wish we did. That would be super helpful and interesting. Monia, are any portions of the programs you talked about paid? Do you want to just talk about that briefly? Which ones are versus aren't paid?
Yeah, absolutely. So in CTE, oftentimes the work-based learning portion is paid. For FutureReadyNYC, there are two work-based learning opportunities within that program. One is called a workplace challenge, and there students can earn a stipend of $575 and an internship as their capstone project. And in the internship, students earn New York State minimum wage of $16 an hour. Internships generally range from 60 to 72 hours. For Career Ready Modern Youth Apprenticeship, students are generally are paid through their apprenticeship provider. And there are varied rates for those. And then for school-based internship programs, again, those really depend on schools. For learning to work programs that I shared, those are paid at New York State minimum wage. Sometimes learning to work will accommodate based on documentation status. And lastly, there are portions of certain co-op tech programs that are paid.
Oh, okay, thanks, Monia. And I see Ellen's clarification. I know for Project Search, they have a high rate of employment at the jobs that the students were placed in during the academic year. And I think the paraprofessional programs also have a high rate of employment depending on like availability. I don't know for CVS internships, what the numbers look like. And for Career Ready and Future Ready and CTE are not necessarily, you might be getting an internship experience, but it might be like within the school. So it's a little bit of a different question. Okay. I think we can move on to the next section, and we will also have time at the end to cover questions. So this is not the last time that you can ask, but these are all really good and helpful questions. So I will now turn it back over to Monia. Oh, just kidding. Do I? No, yeah, I am turning it back over to you. Okay, sorry.
This next segment is going to cover some programs that overlap between in and out of school. So a lot of the programs that we're going to go over in this section are very large scale initiatives that cross between, that has aspects of programming that require young people to be enrolled in a high school. And we'll talk about what aspects they are as we get through the slides. So our first program is the largest youth employment program in the nation, our Summer Youth Employment Program, more commonly known as SYEP. New York City's SYEP program is the largest in the country. It serves about 100,000 youth every summer, youth who range in between ages of 14 to 24 years old. There are 4 different types of SYEP program, and the experience looks different for 14 to 15-year-olds versus 16 to 24-year-old. 3 of the most common types of SYEP is community-based, which most folks know about as the lottery program, where you apply through a community-based organization and you are selected based on a randomized lottery. The second largest in SYEP is Career Ready SYEP. This is a school-based form of SYEP. About a little over 200 schools have Career Ready SYEP, which allows students enrolled in those schools a guaranteed number of slots that they can apply towards. The last most common form of SYEP is special initiatives, and we're going to, in the next slide, go through what special initiatives looks like. And the newest form of SYEP is the Pathways program. So before I talk about the Pathways program, one thing to note is that in order to do community-based SYEP, career-ready SYEP, and special initiatives, you as a student, students must enter a social security number to participate. The Pathways program does not require that. So students don't have to have a social security number in order to apply for the Pathways program. In the Pathways program, the age range goes between 14 to 24, so the experience is not different based on age. Students participate in project-based learning for 60 hours across 6 weeks and earn a stipend of $550. Experience starts in early July, ends in mid-August. For all other forms of SYEP, the experience varies based on age. So students who are 14, 15-year-olds are known as younger youth, or YY. Those young people participate in something called project-based learning. Project-based learning is basically an interactive class that you take with your SYEP provider. It's about 6 weeks with 12.5 hours per week. Students earn a stipend of $700. It happens between July and August. And the other type, and then if you are 16 to 24 years old, and you have to be 16 by your first day of work. So normally most providers cut off at July 1st. So students do have to be 16 by July 1st of 2024 in order to qualify for SYEP this summer. So they don't have to be necessarily 16 when they apply. They can be turning 16 before they apply, they just have to turn 16 before they start the experience. These young people are doing something called an internship / worksite experience. So they have multiple placements. Those placements can include retail work, specialized, like interning for a city council member, working at your own school. So these internship sites vary. They're based off of interest and availability. The students work up to 25 hours per week across 6 weeks. Students earn a minimum wage of $16 an hour, and this experience happens between July and August. In the next slide, I'll go over these specific types of SYEP and what the qualifications are. So the largest form of SYEP still lives under community-based. So all SYEP programs are led by the Department of Youth and Community Development, more commonly known as DYCD, and DYCD contracts community-based organizations to recruit, enroll the student, and place the student in a work site for older youth and for SYEP Pathways program, and younger youth create the project-based learning. So they're working with a community-based organization throughout this time. So in community-based, students would apply online. They just have to meet their minimum age requirements, that they have to be between 14 to 24. Any young person can apply, no matter where they go to school. Whether or not they go to school, anyone is welcome to apply. And they must have a social security number. About 30% of young people get selected into the lottery, but that is based on the number of applications that SYEP receives. The application numbers vary year by year. So it's not a guaranteed acceptance, but students do have to apply. And then students do select up to 3 community-based providers to work with over the summer. The application kind of pulls up into a map and allows young people to select community-based organizations that are close by. If you have an existing relationship with one, if your child went to, after school with a community-based organization that has SYEP, that's a great way to select those kinds of providers. For Career Ready, this is a little more guaranteed. Career Ready SYEP is school-based. So about 252 schools currently have Career Ready SYEP. And each school is matched with a community-based organization to recruit, enroll, and place the students in their experiences. And schools are given anywhere between 6 to 200 slots. It varies based on schools, and schools are capped to their slots. So if your child attends a school that only has 40 slots, that's the amount of students who can participate through Career Ready. And this is where things get a little confusing. If your child cannot participate through Career Ready, they can still apply to community-based if they qualify for special initiatives. They can still apply to there. They can still apply to Ladders for Leaders. So if they can't do one, they can still apply. There's an opportunity to do other programs. So they apply through their school by completing the application. The application will ask the student to choose their school. They'll apply to Career Ready, and they will work with their provider to submit all their documentation and everything to get accepted into SYEP. The next type of SYEP is special initiatives. These are a number of allocation for select young people who are in very specific situations. This includes homeless and runaways, so residing in shelters, justice-involved youth, foster care young people, students who are receiving preventative services through ACS. All of these young people fall under a program called SYEP Emerging Leaders. The next set is sector focused, where this is tied to year-long programs. This is a very small group of young people who participate in sector focus. And lastly, the NYCHA group. Not every NYCHA facility has a NYCHA SYEP contract. So only certain NYCHA facilities have an SYEP contract. If you reside in one of those, then your child can apply through that NYCHA. And we will, in the follow-up email, send some notes around where you can find this information. And then the 2 other parts of SYEP, I know we're going through SYEP a lot. There's Ladders for Leaders. This is much more of a rigorous and difficult to get into program So students have to undergo a rigorous application process. They get trained, and then they get placed in a corporation, a nonprofit, or a government agency for their youth employment program. So if you're looking for, if your child has participated in some work-based learning, looking for a much more enriching experience that is more rigorous and tailored to certain, like if they really want to work in finance over the summer or a tech company over the summer, Ladders for Leaders is a great program to apply for. And then the last and newest form of SYEP, the Pathways program. This is only available at a select number of career-ready SYEP schools. Currently, it only serves about 800 youth through project-based learning. So I would just connect, if you are in a situation where your child cannot provide a social security number, please connect with your school to see if your school offers the SYEP Pathways program. Enrolling into SYEP can be somewhat of a daunting task. Once you've figured out what is the type of SYEP that best fits you and your child's needs, they will generally fill out an online application. After they have submitted their online application, the student does have to be selected either through the lottery or through Career Ready, special initiatives, or the Pathways program. They have to get physically selected. Once they receive their selection email, they will have a strict amount of time to submit their documents. This includes their proof of social security number, their citizenship paperwork, their work authorizations. All of those documents need to be submitted. There are document guides on the DYCD website for each of these programs to share which documents you might need. After they've submitted all of their documents, they engage in a two-part orientation, one led by their SYEP provider, the other through an online portal called Hats and Ladders, and then lastly, they start the summer work. So once they've done SYEP, they actually qualify for a fall and school year extension program called Work, Learn, Grow. So WLG, Work, Learn, Grow, whatever you want to call it. So a student has to have participated in SYEP in order to qualify for Work, Learn, Grow. Work, Learn, Grow begins, and this is only for students who are 16 to 21. Work, Learn, Grow begins with a CUNY course that students must take. So they have to take a class, they earn a stipend, and then they work between 10 hours to 25 hours per week during school breaks. And the program generally starts with the CUNY course in October. The work experiences begin in the beginning of December and ends either the end of March or early to mid-April. And then I'm not passing it to Juliet. One more slide to go. So SYEP and Work, Learn, Grow are two huge programs. Other programs to look out for that are also offered through the Department of Youth and Community Development are all of the programs that have like Learn or Earn in them. So Learn and Earn is a really amazing program, especially for young people who come from very low income backgrounds and need both career exploration and academic support. This program is for youth who are between the ages of 16 to 21, particularly in their junior and senior years of high school. They must reside in New York City, so they get both career preparation, it's a career training, and paid work experiences. So students must be enrolled in school to participate in Learn and Earn. The latter two, they do not have to. So for Advance and Earn, it allows young people to gain career training and employment for students who are the ages of 16 to 24. Students can also get their HSC, their high school equivalency test preparation through Advance and Earn. And then lastly, the program called Train and Earn. Train and Earn is meant for young people who are no longer engaged or attending school. And this is, again, for young people who are 16 to 24 years old. The students can gain access to career pathways, get certification, get vocational training, and a chance in the hopes that they land their permanent job. They do get paid for job training and internships. So it's really great for young people who are currently not attending school. They can also earn their high school equivalency, or they can get their high school equivalency test preparation through Train and Earn. And that is all of the DYCD programs. And I'm going to pass it back to Juliet.
Okay, great. So now I am going to go over some resources that I think will answer some of the questions that are in the chat about students with disabilities. So in talking about work-based learning programs available both in and outside of school, an important resource to mention that I briefly touched on earlier are Transition and College Access Centers, or TCACs. These are centers run by the DOE in all 5 boroughs, as in there's one in each borough, and their goal is to support students with IEPs in their transition to life after high school. So they provide a few resources in doing so, and I'll walk through a few of these that specifically touch on work-based learning. But as an overview, they can help students in applying for college and financial aid. They provide connection to social services such as OPWDD and Access VR. They conduct trainings for school staff, parents, and students. They offer job readiness supports and work-based learning opportunities. So I'm going to talk about those last 2 in a little bit more detail. But before I do, this is just a little bit more specific information on what each of these categories means. So workshops that they have for students include workshops on the college search process, the job readiness skills like resume building, self-advocacy. There are workshops for families on things like applying OPWDD and support for transition planning and financial aid. They also provide one-on-one individual consultancies to families to help with transition planning, where you basically get to meet with them one-on-one and talk about what you're looking for support in and see what they can do to help. And then last but not least, they provide work-based learning and internships through the Training Opportunities Program, or TOP, and the Summer Youth Employment Program, or SYEP, which Monia was just talking about, as well as through a program called PREETS, which stands for Pre-Employment Transition Services. So PREETS at the TCACs is a program that's funded by Access VR, and it's meant to serve as a precursor to Access VR services. It's for students that are earlier on in their high school careers who are still in the job exploration process and not sure exactly what they want to do after high school, which is most students. So the way that PREETS works through TCACs is that you can actually go to the transition team leader at your school to apply for these, but Access VR has a contract with the TCACs, and so through the TCACs, students can access PREETS courses. There are 5 different virtual courses that students can take that touch on different elements of the job exploration process. All of them are free. All of them, as provided through the TCACs, are virtual. The 5 courses are the ones you see on the slide. So job exploration counseling, work-based learning experiences, counseling on opportunities for enrollment in post-secondary education, workplace readiness training, and instruction in self-advocacy counseling. So as you can hear, a lot of these touch on similar topics, but the goal is to, in different ways, expose students to job readiness skills, self-advocacy skills, and learn a little bit more about what their options are for post-high school before applying to Access VR, which we will talk about in more detail later as well. The second big way that TCACs offer supports through work-based learning is through SYEP and TOP. So for students with IEPs, there used to be a system where one of those SYEP offerings that Monia talked about would prioritize students with IEPs. Now what the DOE is saying is if you have an IEP, to the extent that you are going to need more supports on the job site because of your IEP, you should apply to SYEP through the TCAC in your borough. Your school can also help you apply through the TCAC, but that is really what they are advising families to do, because if you secure SYEP through the TCAC in your borough, you're basically guaranteed to be placed at a site where they will provide more supports for your IEP. So this is really specifically oriented, not all students with IEPs need support on a job site. If your student does, that is when you make the determination to apply to SYEP through your borough's TCAC instead of through one of the other programs mentioned before. It's still run in the same way. They're paid internships, up to 25 hours a week during the summer. Same age brackets, 14 to 24. And also if school connected, so if there's a component where you're also like taking a resume building class through your school, you'll get credit towards a work-based learning credential. And again, you can go to your school to apply, and you can also apply through the TCAC. If you're going to your school to apply, you're saying, hey, can you help me apply through the borough's TCAC? The way that instead of Work, Learn, Grow, which is SYEP's counterpart, where students can get work experience during the school year, through the TCACs, the DOE offers TOP, or the Training Opportunities Program, which is a school year program for students with IEPs to get work-based learning experiences. So it's school connected. Your school has to have a TOP program in order for you to apply to participate in TOP. It's a lottery system, and you can work up to 15 hours a week during the school year through TOP to get work-based learning experience during the school year to complement SYEP, which only happens during the summer. Okay, that was a lot of information. I'm quickly going to go through some advocacy tips, and then we'll pause for questions. So some of the programs we touched on are school-based in this last section, but some of them aren't. And generally, out-of-school programs are not bound by your IEP. The IEP is a specific document that it guides the DOE in providing services to your child. It doesn't have the same power outside of school. Still, it can always help to share information with a provider serving your student, whether that be an IEP or another evaluation or document, to show what supports will help them succeed and what sorts of accommodations they need on a job site. If you think you're being denied opportunities because of your disability, or you're not getting accommodations that are necessary for you to succeed on the job site, self-advocacy is really key. Raise this issue, raise it to the head of the program, can always escalate as needed, can even go so far as filing a complaint if none of these alternatives work. can call our helpline. But generally, self-advocacy is the most important first step to take when you're not getting the supports you need. Of course, I wish we live in a world where all programs just automatically provided these supports, and maybe one day we'll be there, but realistically, you know, this is the best way to at least start the conversation in getting more support. But there are a lot of advocacy organizations out there that can also support in this process. And as we touched on before, same is true here. And Monia touched on this with SYP. Most out-of-school programs do still require working papers, though there are some that do not. Okay, I'm gonna pause here for questions. I think we answered a few in the Q&A. I think if you apply directly through your school, again, if you're applying through TCACs, that helps ensure you get the IEP supports. Otherwise, I don't think there is a priority for students with IEPs. But Monia or Alex, feel free to jump in if you have a different understanding. But I don't think that applying online versus through the school, if you have an IEP, that's not going to be what makes the difference. It makes a difference if you apply through the TCACs.
Yeah, exactly. So students do not receive priority because of their IEP status. They should, the easiest way to apply is through online. Every single type of SYEP other than the Pathways program have an online application. So applying online and applying physically is the same. And they're only prioritized, the IEP is only prioritized if you're applying through a TCAC.
Okay, I think those are all of the questions for now. So I'm going to pass it off to Alex to talk about work-based learning programs that are specifically designed for students with disabilities.
Great, thanks so much, Juliet. You know, I think another way to look at this category that we're going to talk about is also maybe community-based programs. It's kind of a mix of some of the other things that are available outside of the world of DOE or DYCD, but certainly these are tailored to students with disabilities. Next slide, please. So first, we're kind of just looking at certain programs. These are primarily organizations that offer training programs. You may have heard of CoLab, which is a theater group for students and young people with developmental disabilities. They have both free classes and training programs. They have a very large variety of classes and after school and weekend based and performance and things like that. And similar is Epic Players, which is also a theater company that you've probably seen. They do a lot of work with District 75 and go around doing performances. And again, these are community-based organizations that are really teaching kind of arts and visual arts and theater and music skills through experiential learning. There's also on this list is The Cut, which is a culinary program offered by The Door. Now, The Door is not an organization that works primarily with students with disabilities. That's what makes them unique on this list. But we include them here through our partnership and working with them. In the past, we know they are willing to offer some accommodations for students with disabilities. In generally the world of programs that are kind of skill-based or vocational, every school or provider is supposed to offer some form of accommodation. Again, this is a webinar focused on students with disabilities. So we have the ones that either we know or believe provide the greatest level of support. Last but not least, this is more of a true OPWD supporter, but it's the Nicholas Center. They have a variety of programs that they provide through internships or vocational based learning skills, as well as through partnerships. And actually, they will be talked about a little bit more in the OPWDD section that's coming up. Next slide, please. So we're going to talk about Access VR. Briefly, just the programs that they offer related to this. Many of you know Access VR. They offer many, many different things. Access VR is a state vocational rehab agency, and they offer internship opportunities. Now, they don't offer them directly. Access VR generally doesn't offer much directly, but when you work through providers like CUSEC or JobPath or CRMYA, these are just examples of 3 organizations that have internships, place students into internships, and the students get paid through these internships. So one of the cool things that Access VR does at times is, even if there's an internship out there from XYZ company, but it's not paid, if you get that internship through Access VR, there's an opportunity for it to become paid. Now, that is not for every company. You still have to be an Access VR provider or work through an Access VR provider, which is a significant thing to achieve. But there's a lot of those kinds of opportunities to Access VR. Next slide, please. So we're just going to highlight a couple things that are within the Access VR realm for students with disabilities. This is about the Institute for Career Development, ICD. They're ultimately a combination of different things. They're a career school. They work in schools as well as a school navigator. They do trainings. But they are really set up to serve students with disabilities. Most of their services are funded through Access VR. They have certifications for IT and Cisco, custodial services, building repair, human services in the form of direct service professionals, and is really a great way. It's kind of like an out-of-school CTE, trade school vocational program that they offer. They also offer pre-ETs and vocational counseling and a variety of other things, and could be a great opportunity that you can somewhat, mostly take part on after you're 18, but again, provides a very work-based learning kind of experience and certifications. Next slide, please. This is a new internship program that's come to light just in the last few years. I guess it's not that new anymore. Even though it is administered by AHRC, it is an Access VR funded program. It's really a partnership between HRA of New York City and a variety of city agencies, from social services, parks department, MTA, all kinds. And this allows students with primarily intellectual disabilities to work in an internship in a city agency, doing all kinds of things from data entry to HR support, research, policy, and things like that. A lot of students, I know just from experience, students who, or young adults who participate in this program are able to secure employment at times, and it's a great way to get yourself into a city job or a city agency if you're interested. They also have a lot of skill-based components to the program, like financial literacy, other skills building, and job readiness. So yeah, this is a unique city partnership internship-based program, again, tailored specifically for students with disabilities. Next slide, please. So again, we just highlighted a couple of the Access VR programs. Obviously, there are many Access VR providers that provide an array of different things. Access VR is a program for students with disabilities, so every one of their providers should be able to provide some support, but we are focused specifically on work-based learning, not the entirety of the world of academic instruction, job placement, or placement services, so we're just highlighting some of the work-based learning ones. Next, we have OPWDD. Everybody's heard of OPWDD, I imagine, who's on here. OPWDD also offers internships and pre-voc services. Now, they're different, because of the way these agencies work and various coding and services that come under Medicaid and services that don't come under Medicaid. It's very different, but this is just an example of some of the internships or pre-voc services that are available through providers like AHRC, again, the Nicholas Center that we talked earlier, Goodwill, Adapt. Most of these are related to either pathways to employment or supported employment programs, which are kind of well-known OPWD structures. But within them, there's a lot of unique opportunities for work-based learning and community partnerships to get internships through these agencies. Next slide, please. I'm not going to spend too much time on the slide, especially as we're kind of running out of time here, but something that commonly gets confused or is unclear is what's the difference between Access VR employment supports and OPWDD kind of work-based learning employment supports. And this just shows you some there's a lot of things that fall in one or the other category, where there's a lot of things that overlap, and supported employment, job coaching, internships, other kinds of services that aren't necessarily work-based learning, but support work-based learning, or kind of employment or vocational searches, do overlap. There's very nuanced differences. This is just to highlight that there is some overlap in the two agencies. So I believe we have one more slide, and then we kind of get to the end here. So there is some OPWDD programs that are community-based, but they're funded primarily through self-direction. So they're not a direct OPWDD service, something like Day Have or Community Have. They're a community-based provider that accepts funding via the self-direction program. We have Yes She Can, which is a retail training program for students with autism, and primarily works on American Girl dolls and retail around dolls. Could be a great way to get work-based learning experience in the retail sector. Then there is the Invictus Bakery, which is located in Brooklyn. It's a culinary program for young people with autism. Again, they have lots of classes. They have lots of work-based readiness training. They even do direct orders, which is kind of like a direct business or vocational program. Again, these programs are generally not free, unlike some of the ones on the first slide that I started with. But these programs do accept funds through self-direction or other kind of means, where young adults can participate and get some really great skills-based learning. And then the last two, we have Tech Kids Unlimited. This is a computer science technology skills building program. Students and young adults, for students with young adults with autism and related developmental disabilities. You learn graphics design, video editing, coding, all kinds of different things. They have workshops, classes, boot camps, summer programs, a lot of different things. Again, would be paid for through OPWD self-direction. Last but not least is more of a traditional program. It's the Harvest Cafe. There are other OPWDD kind of providers that have cafes affiliated with their day have programs. This is just one example. It's a food industry training program for students with disabilities. It's the Harvest Cafe, which is a part of a very special place, OPWDD agency, but as part of that day have program and other training programs within the traditional services, not just self-direction, OPWD, you can learn these skills, which eventually could lead to a job in the food industry. So let me see if we have any questions, and then I will finish this up. In these programs. So Ellen, that's a great question. I will say that a lot of these programs actually do have significant waiting lists, and it really varies from program to program. Programs like CoLab and Epic Players, which are the theater programs I spoke about at the beginning, they have audition and registration cycles that generally happen seasonally. And I've been able to get students in within a month or two. Other programs like Invictus Bakery have a year or year and a half waiting list. Similarly, Yes She Can also has a waiting list. So every program varies. None of these programs are serving hundreds of students. Mostly, I know at Invictus Bakery from being there and working with them, a lot of, they're serving maybe a dozen, 2 dozen, maybe 3 dozen students across their various programs. And similar for Tech Kids Unlimited. There's also a waiting list, but because of the nature of the program being computer-based and virtual, they have a little bit more capacity. So that's kind of a quick answer without giving you the exact numbers. We don't have the exact numbers, but these are not as massive as the SYEPs or even the tops that are within the DOE serving, hundreds and hundreds of students in various ways. Any other questions? I think this is our last slide. You can go to the next slide, Juliet. Thank you. I know I went through the last slides a little quick because I know we're past our time, but I'm going to be sending in the chat a survey for you all to fill out. Please let us know how we did today. What did you like? What was useful? This information is really helpful to us in knowing what information to present in the future. And actually, the reason that this webinar was offered is because we got lots of feedback that work-based learning is mysterious. And what does it mean? And we try to demystify it a little bit today. It's a really, really important category for students with disabilities who often really excel and do well in kind of work-based learning, experiential learning, and performance-based kind of workshops and skills and instruction. Please look at the chat. Again, I sent the link for the survey. If you don't mind filling it out, we'd be very appreciative. I see we might have 1 or 2 more questions. Oh, just thank yous. Yes, we're happy. Happy to help. Again, here is our number. If you ever need to reach Advocates for Children, our helpline is available Monday through Thursday. This is a great way to get some quick information or clarification on some of the things we discussed, as well as lots of other information to help you with your student. And last but not least, we have one more slide, right? You can sign up for our newsletter and get monthly updates from Advocates for Children. You can do it on our website. We will be sharing this slide deck with participants so you can get all this kind of good information. We'll give everyone a minute or 2 more just to finish up your survey. We thank you for your responses.
Oh, we have a raised hand.
Oh, we have a raised hand.
I don't know how to answer raised.
I think, who was it? I think I can do it.
I don't know. I just saw it pop up on my screen, but it might have disappeared.
Feel free to send in the chat if you would like to say something. I can give you.
We'll stick around for a couple more minutes if anyone has any other questions, but otherwise, thank you all for taking the time to be with us today. And thank you, Monia, for joining our training. Super helpful.
All right, well, feel free to work on your survey responses. Even as we jump off, the survey will still be live. But thank you all for joining us. And please feel brave and offer lots of work-based learning opportunities to those you work with, to your students, to the families you work with. They're tremendous opportunities. We at Advocates for Children, in combination with our partners at Expand, that are always looking to get more supports for work-based learning through the DOE and other places. You know, but in conjunction with students with disabilities really utilizing the services, it helps us move the needle forward to make sure that every support that a student with disability needs is available in work-based learning programs. So with that, we bid you all adieu. Thank you for coming again, and enjoy the rest of your week.